All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Premier Esports Academy web series. My name is Dan Himmelstein, founder and brain coach at Premier Esports Academy, and today we're going to be talking about motivation. Now, motivation is going to be super important and is super important throughout your performance for a number of reasons. Motivation, it keeps you going. It makes you continue to enjoy what you're doing, to enjoy your performance, what your esport is. And it also helps you refrain from experiencing burnout and mitigates those effects of experiencing burnout. So motivation can do a lot of things, and we have to make sure that we're managing it properly. So I'll start you guys off with a quote today. And that quote is, "Motivation's like a fire. You have to make sure that you build it right." Now, there's two ways to build a fire. There might be more. Don't quote me on that. But two ways to build a fire. You can throw a bunch of gasoline on some paper and some things that are going to burn very quickly, and it's going to burn super quick, probably pretty hot, and burn out pretty quickly. So we all know, throw some gas on the fire and it burns very quick. Now, if you build that fire right by using, smaller branches, get some pine needles, build some kindling. We're going very into depth about how to build a fire here. But the idea is that if you build that fire right and you build it up in those small increments and those blocks, that will sustain a much larger fire, a much hotter fire for much longer. So you might be thinking, Dan, I'm here for esports, I'm here for performance. Why are you talking about fires? So how does this relate to motivation? So there's two main types of motivation that we talk about, and that's going to be intrinsic and extrinsic. Now, the intrinsic is going to be things that come from inside of you, like passion, pride, enjoyment. Maybe it's being with your friends. So there's a lot of these inner feelings that are associated with intrinsic motivation. So we can tie that into being self-motivated, being driven by your own desires and nothing external. And that's where that extrinsic motivation comes in. So that can be seen as things like the most obvious are like money, trophies, fame, fortune, those big names that we, often hear about all the time, and especially when you get to those professional ranks. So let's bring this idea back to the fire piece, building this fire. How, that's great and all, but how do I actually do that? What does that mean for us in terms of building a fire the right way and building motivation? So when we start, we typically talk, when we start off on our performance, it's usually very internally motivated. It's intrinsically motivated. We are doing it for enjoyment. We want to hang out with our friends. We want to see ourselves improve at something that we're already not very good at. So those are those types of intrinsic things that get us started. Now, as we move and as we progress, we may be able to get into the professional ranks, and extrinsic rewards are introduced. Let's talk paychecks, salaries, big sponsorship deals, fame, things like that. Now, what happens when we introduce these external motivators into something that we were doing for solely intrinsic reasons? Well, what happens is when those extrinsic motivators start to dwindle, then we start to lose those intrinsic motivators. So I'm getting a paycheck, I'm famous, I'm a pro gamer, awesome, that's great, but maybe we start to see less and less results. Maybe we're not playing at the top of our game lately, and we're no longer playing just with our friends, just to go have fun, because we want to improve, we want to get better, we want to show off. Those are the types of things that start to dwindle when we start to introduce these external motivators. And once those external motivators start falling slower and slower, maybe our paycheck got a little lower, maybe we're not getting as much sponsorship dollars. Now we no longer have those intrinsic motivators to fall back on, and we're going to experience burnout because our practice routines, they've obviously gotten more intense. And we're doing this day in, day out. We might have bills to depend on. We might have things that we really need to take care of because, and that aren't being taken care of because we're not getting those same results that we were. So how do we mitigate this? How do we combat this? One of the best things that I've seen work over and over and over again is reconnecting to that dream, reconnecting to those internal intrinsic motivators that got us playing, that got us motivated to start the game and to get out there and keep doing it. Now, this isn't me saying that all extrinsic factors are bad and we should avoid them at all costs, refuse a paycheck, refuse fame. I'm not saying that at all. However, it's how we manage both the intrinsic and extrinsic factors and motivators that, will determine how much we can actually continue to enjoy our performance and continue to move forward and progress. Because we all know if you're no longer enjoying something, it is very, very, very hard to improve at it. It's just fact of the matter is we're just not going to want to do it anymore, and we're going to want to do other things. So what am I saying when I'm talking about, okay, some extrinsic factors are good? So the extrinsic factors that are really good are going to be the ones that are internally motivated, that are intrinsically motivated. Now, that might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's not. So let's take, for example, a paycheck, a salary. Let's use that as an example. Now, if we want the salary to buy fancy cars, to go out to fancy dinners, that's probably not the type of extrinsic motivation that we're looking for. However, if we're doing it so that we can pay our way through school, or that we can help improve ourselves and to help us enjoy what we're doing, then that might be a little more adaptive in terms of, using that to our advantage and making sure that we're not just solely focused on those extrinsic factors. So that's going to be really, really important to manage as well. So, bit of an action plan. This is going to be my action plan to you guys. If you guys start to feel like extrinsic factors and extrinsic motivators are really starting to take over, make sure that we're reconnecting with why we got into it in the first place, what we really enjoy about performance, and what we're going to do to continue to seek for areas of improvement, learn from each other, enjoy the performance. So that's going to be it for today. That's my piece on motivation. Make sure you guys are managing this, because the last thing we want to see you do, and the last thing your organization wants to see you do, is burnout. We want you guys experiencing enjoyment while you're doing this performance, because otherwise, like I said, if you're not enjoying it, you're not improving. So that'll be it. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Handles on the bottom right hand of your screen. It's at @dims_esports or at @dhims_esports. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to see when new content comes out. That's all.